you were to go up to a random person and ask them to finish this sentence, if only I had just a little bit more, I bet you most would easily be able to do that. If only I had just a little bit more time. If only I had just a little bit more help. If only I had just a little bit more when it comes to resources. If only I had just a little bit more something. It's not bad to evaluate what you have and what you might need, but it's the kind of phrase that if you keep saying it to yourself, if you keep being able to fill that out, it can very easily lead to a lot of things that you don't want to carry with you on your heart. A lot of discouragement, disappointment, fear, doubt, doubt that you're going to be okay. Because then you'll always be living with this sense of, I don't have what I need. I always need just a little bit more in order to know that I'm going to be okay. And if you ever catch yourself thinking that way, then go to Joshua chapter 11. In the Bible, Joshua and the Israelites, they were just in the middle of defeating the northern kingdoms that were coming to attack them. And they attacked them, and God gave them the victory in just one day. And those northern kingdoms, they had chariots and they had horses. And God gave them very special instructions with those chariots and horses. He said, the horses, I want you to hamstring. I want you to cut their hamstrings so that the horses become useless. And the chariots, I want you to burn up completely so that they're not able to be used by anyone. And you know what's interesting about that the instructions that God gave them with the chariots and the horses, the Israelites didn't have any of those things. They were this army that's kind of a ragtag bunch of soldiers just doing the best with what they had. And I wouldn't have been surprised if they thought to themselves, we're defeating this army and we would do a lot better next time. This would be a lot easier if we had some chariots of our own, if we had some horses, because they didn't have any of those things. But just as they were getting excited about the possibility of having something that they didn't yet have, God told them to keep those things away from them. It's not because he didn't want them to succeed. It's not because he didn't want them to feel a sense of strength and security. It's because he was teaching them the same lesson that he often teaches us in life when he doesn't give us everything that we want immediately when we want it. He was teaching them to rely on him, to believe that as long as they have God, then they're going to be okay. And it's the same thing that he promises us. In 2 Corinthians, the Apostle Paul passed on a lesson that he learned from the Lord through some pretty needy times of his own. The lesson of God saying, my grace is all you need. My grace is sufficient for you. And he went on to say, my power is made perfect in weakness. Those times in life when you feel like you're missing something, when you're feeling like something is lacking, you often feel weak, at least not as strong as you think you could be feeling. But God's saying you don't need to be afraid of those times, because it's in those moments that God always comes through for us. It's not accidental that at the moment that God came through for us in the best, most perfect way was the moment he himself looked weakest. Jesus, hanging on a cross with a weak human body, life dripping away, drop by drop by drop, until finally he wasn't just weak, he was dead. There was no strength. And yet through that, the forgiveness that was earned by that sacrifice, the resurrection that took place on the third day, God showed that it doesn't matter how weak something looks, it doesn't matter how weak someone feels. God's grace will always be sufficient to take care of you, his flock, his own child. It will be. The Apostle Paul, again, in one of his other letters, he points to that same sacrifice, just a very special way of helping us keep that in mind when he says, if God didn't even spare his own son, if he gave and he gave and he gave, tremendous cost to love us, to forgive us, to to make us his own. You're never going to lack anything that you really need to stay close to him. He will always make sure it's there. And you know what that makes you today? Somebody who's living with that promise. Promise that God will always supply whatever he knows is needed to keep you close to him, the one who will always guide and guard and protect and love you. That makes you strong. That makes you secure. That makes you someone who's going to be okay. You're going to be okay. Rest well tonight, my friends.